Greetings, my beautiful lovelies, it's Emmy and welcome back. Today I'm going to be making a recipe I've been thinking about for years. I know I say that a lot, but I think about a lot of recipes for years. And this one I've been thinking about since I was, I think, a teenager, really. So we're going to be making something that I grew up calling Joong, but it goes by many different names depending on the dialect and the type of Chinese that you speak. Now, I am Chinese American, but I did not grow up speaking any Chinese. My parents actually grew up in Burma, which is currently known as Myanmar, so I actually understand Burmese more than I understand any Chinese whatsoever. And my father is Cantonese, Taisan Chinese, and so he called these Joong. So that's what I grew up calling them, but they're also known as Zongzi. Pardon my terrible Mandarin. And these are rice dumplings made of sticky or glutinous rice that are wrapped in bamboo leaves and stuffed with different kinds of fillings. Now again, depending on what part of China you come from, you're going to have different styles of zongzi or Joong. Now growing up, my brother and I had two versions of Joong that we would eat, the Cantonese and the Fukienese kind. Now the Cantonese kind is the one that I'll be making today. It has peanuts, it has pork belly, a little bit of sausage, sometimes a preserved salted duck egg in the middle. Now my mother's version is seasoned with 5 spice powder and the rice has a darker color. It sometimes has dry shiitake mushrooms in there. It sometimes will have garlic, pork belly, a sweet chestnut inside. So this process is very labor intensive, and I have a memory of my grandfather and grandmother making these a long time ago in their apartment. And it was this kind of assembly line process, because once you make them, you might as well make a bunch of them, because it just takes a lot of time, not only to make them, but to cook them. But they are my favorite. I love them. Growing up, we would only eat them on occasion, but since we've gotten older, my mom has found a source where they sell them year round, and whenever my brother and I come and visit, my mom has a bunch of them in the freezer for us to take home. The recipe I'm going to be using today comes from the blog The Walks of Life. If you don't know it, I'll put a link down below. It's beautifully written and photographed, and the recipes are tried and true. So the night before you make your zongzi, you're going to soak 5 cups of sticky or glutinous rice, and then soak it with a couple inches of water overnight. You're going to unbundle your packs of bamboo leaves. You can find these at the Asian market, and then you're going to submerge these in plenty of water and soak these overnight as well. You'll also need to soak 2/3 of a cup of raw peanuts. Now these peanuts are different than the ones that you can find at the supermarket. They have a slightly different texture and flavor. You're going to need 1 pound of pork belly that's been cut into 2-inch pieces. So to your pork belly pieces, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of light soy sauce, a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, 2 teaspoons of shaoxing wine, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground white pepper, and 1 teaspoon of oil. So I inadvertently added the 1/2 cup of water to the marinade. You're actually supposed to add the 1/2 cup of water during the cooking process. So make sure you follow the directions when you cook yours. So the next day, we're going to drain our rice, and then we're going to season it. 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce and 2 teaspoons of salt. I wanted to make this super tasty, so I added 1 teaspoon of MSG. Next, you're going to take your peanuts, and you can rub some of the hulls off of them if you like to make the peanuts nice and white, and then place the peanuts into a small saucepan, cover them with water, bring them up to a boil, and boil them for 5 minutes. Heat up a wok or a saucepan on medium-high heat, and then you're going to sear your pork belly. Cook them until they're nice and golden, and then add a 1/2 cup of water, or in my case, just the remaining marinade, and cook this for 5 or 10 minutes until all the liquid is absorbed. Next, we're going to take 3 Chinese sausages and cut them into about 1.5-inch pieces. The original recipe calls for salted duck egg yolks, but my family doesn't like them, so I chose to omit them. Okay, so now we're ready to actually assemble the zongzi. Now this part, I have to admit, is pretty challenging. There are lots of videos on how to wrap them, and I'll put links down below. There are lots of different shapes of zongzi, but the ones that I saw growing up were this beautiful tetrahedral pyramid, and that was my goal, and I was sort of successful. So we need to prepare our soaked bamboo leaves by cutting the bottom 1/2 inch off. We also want to take a damp towel to absorb any excess moisture. Now there are a couple different methods on arranging the leaves. You can put the pointy ends up facing each other and kind of roll it into a cone, and you're going to have 2 of the leaves kind of sticking upwards. Now another method is to stack 2 leaves and just take the midpoint of those 2 leaves and then roll it into a cone. What happens here is your leaves are going to be shorter, so you're not going to have as much to fold over. So just figure out what works out best for you. Once we've rolled it into a cone and we have the 2 leaves kind of sticking out, having the cone kind of face away from me was a little bit easier. You're going to take a small spoonful of your seasoned rice and put it in the bottom of the cone and lightly kind of pack it in. Next, we're going to place our stuffing. So put some meat, put a piece of sausage, put your peanuts in, and then cover it again with some more rice. We're going to fill the cone all the way up to the top. And then you're going to take that flap of leaves and close it over the top of the rice, kind of packing it in. Once you close the lid of the leaf, you're going to take your left hand and kind of squeeze it and shape it into a triangle. We're taking that round cone shape and shaping it into a triangle by squeezing it with our left hand. And then we're going to take our right hand and fold over the edges of the leaf, making a triangle shape. So we have a circle shape, and then we're pressing it into a triangular shape, folding those leaves down. Now you have a little flap sticking up, and then we're going to fold that neatly over, and that should give us a nice clean edge. Should give you a clean edge. So now that you have this kind of pyramidal shape, you're not finished yet. You're going to have to tie it off with some twine. Some people like to tie string onto some sort of point of attachment, a doorknob, something to give some tension. And then you wrap your zongzi with that tension and tie a really tight knot. You don't want it too tight because then as the rice expands, you're gonna get a funny shaped dumpling. So the other technique, and the one that I ended up using, was taking the string and placing the end in my teeth and then using that to have some tension on the string. I have to admit, when I was making these, there was a lot of cursing going on. There's just a lot to figure out in terms of hand placement, proper tying technique, yada yada. So the recipe says you'll make 12. I ended up with 22. My zongzi were very small, but this was my first go around and I was happy that I got 22. Now we're ready to cook. Traditionally, you would boil these for hours, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours until the rice is completely cooked. But I have an Instapot, and I had read that you could cook these in the Instant Pot. So I did these in 2 batches, so I placed 11 in the pot of my Instapot, and then I filled the water up to the maximum level, closed it up, set it on high pressure, and cooked it for 1 hour. So after an hour, I let them sit there for another 30 to 40 minutes, and then I did a quick release. At this point, it's pretty close to a natural release. Then you take out your dumplings, and they were perfectly cooked. I was so pleased. Because of the limitations on the size of my Instant Pot, I had to do these in 2 batches, which was fine. The other half I refrigerated and I cooked them the next day. Same method, same cooking time. Worked out beautifully. It's best to eat the zongzi when they're hot. Right out of the boiling water is best. But to store them, you cool them down, place them in the refrigerator, and you can eat them in a few days. You can wrap them individually and place them in the freezer and keep them for a few months. That's what my mom does, and that's what I'm going to do. My kids love zongzi. They call it sticky rice. They love them. So I love to have some on hand for a quick little lunch or snack. So if you have them frozen or have them stored in the refrigerator to heat them up, the best way to do it is to either boil them in water for about 10 or 15 minutes till they're warm all the way through, or to steam them. You can microwave them, but the heat is a little bit uneven, so you'll get parts that get a little bit overcooked. But in a pinch, you can microwave them. Enough chatting about these. Let's go ahead and taste these. I've got some reheating right here and some hot water. Just grab them by the string. These are the best. So zongzi are traditionally eaten at the beginning of May in the lunar calendar, which falls in the Gregorian calendar usually mid-May to early June. Now they're eaten during this time of year, during the Dragon Boat Festival. And there's a story of a legendary poet named Chu Yan, and he committed suicide. So people would throw these rice dumplings into the water so that the fish would eat the rice dumplings rather than eat his body. Kind of a grim tale, yes, but delicious food. Yes. Alrighty, I'm so excited about this. I love Joong so much. My brother, we eat your heart out. We love these so much. I actually texted him after I made these. I'm like, you have to make these. They're so delicious. Okay, they're actually the perfect thing to make during quarantine because they're so labor intensive. It's like putting your good time and effort to work. Alrighty, enough. Oh, let's do this. This is what we had before we had plastic. We had leaves, beautiful leaves. So you can serve this with chili sauce if you like, or hot sauce. Here's the part that we folded over. Unfold that. There's the flap. There's our beautiful sticky rice. Oh my gosh. Yes, 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 yes. Look how beautiful that is. Look at that. Oh. As a kid, my favorite part was the meat. I didn't really care for the rice. I really didn't like the peanuts when I was a kid, but now I adore them. It's funny how your tastes change. Pork belly in there. We have the peanuts. Here's the sausage. And all those flavors and fattiness have absorbed into the rice. Itadakimasu. Spot on. Delicious recipe. Delicious food. The rice is sticky and chewy, but not mushy. And it's absorbed all those fatty flavors from the pork and the sausage. And of course, we seasoned it as well. It's not overly salty, it's scrumptious. And then we've got the bits of peanut in there, which have cooked and they're tender. They remind me a bit of boiled peanuts, but they have a slightly different flavor. And they too have absorbed the flavors of the meat. The pork belly is just decadent. It's unctuous and soft. You get a little bit of meat in there, but a lot of it's that lovely fatty texture. And you got a little bit of skin on the top. The sausage is lovely. It's slightly sweet. It too is fatty. So it's given a lot of its fat to the neighboring rice around it. Oh man. So good. I love this so much. Look, let me eat this whole thing. So when I eat this at home, I usually have a little side salad because it's so rich and dense. It's nice just to have some greens. I don't even dress the greens, just whatever greens, spinach, any kind of lettuce that you have around. It's really great to have this with a little bite of lettuce to kind of balance things out because this is so, so rich and delicious. So cooking these in an Instant Pot makes this recipe so much more accessible because you don't have to be monitoring them as they're boiling. You don't have to add water and making sure they don't boil over. The Instant Pot makes this much, much easier and faster. So I will definitely be making these again. I already told Wee the next time I see him, we have to make a batch of these. And I think next time I'll also try the Shanghai version as well because more deliciousness, what's not to love? What is not to love? Alrighty, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something and I hope you guys try this recipe. It's absolutely delicious. Thanks again for watching. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye. Woo!